Hello and welcome to the Evercade Retreat. Gene Joke here, bringing you a review and ranking of Dragon Master from the Pico Arcade Collection 1 and adding it to my ever-growing list where I rank every Evercade game ever. Dragon Master was released into arcades in 1994 and was developed by Unico, who I believe are a South Korean games developer or something like that anyway. It's a fighting game that is very much in the Street Fighter 2 mold, multiple selectable characters, all with their own unique special moves, and you fight your way around the world taking on the various opponents from whatever country they happen to hail from. The Street Fighter influence is obvious, but hardly surprising, as in the early 90s, Street Fighter 2 clones were to a penny. But the question is it a good clone? Well, looking at still screenshots, it probably looks quite good. Well, aside from looking very derivative, many of the backgrounds are cribbed straight from Street Fighter 2. I mean, they've had some changes, they've put their own spin on it, but they're certainly heavily inspired. I also wouldn't be surprised to learn that other backgrounds may be inspired by other fighting games. It all has a very familiar whiff to it, although I do like that the Sagat-like background features a statue of a dog. That did make me chuckle. The fighters do seem less Street Fighter 2 inspired, perhaps a bit more anime and Neo Geo Fighter inspired, but again they feel very generic. You wouldn't be surprised to see these games in something like Fighter's History or Body Blows, and they would seem generic compared to most of the characters in those. Not to mention that some of the animation frames do look directly lifted from Street Fighter, and others just look a little bit awkward, like they couldn't match the same standard of animation if they weren't copying it from something else. It managed to achieve a strange balance between fairly appealing looking and unappealing, but mainly the unappealing is in the character design rather than the proficiency at which they pulled it off. The sound is generally quite decent, the various thumps and noises fairly generic sounding, like every fighting game really. How exciting can you make punching sounds? And the music is also quite well done, although I find none of the tunes stick in my head after playing. They're perfectly fine in the moment. The gameplay is where it falls down. It feels a bit janky to play. The movement, the hitboxes, nothing's quite right. And then there's the weirdness of the other bar underneath your energy, which is, I don't know what you'd call it. I'm sure there's a word for it, but I can't think of what they called it in the game. Okay, I went and checked. It's the spirit meter apparently. Okay, so the spirit meter starts off full and depletes as you attack your enemy. As the meter gets lower, your attacks do less damage, but you can refill the meter by standing still and holding an attack button for a second or so. Yeah, it's a absolutely fantastic mechanic for a fighting game. Yep, not a hint of sarcasm there. But even without that stupid mechanic, the game just doesn't feel right. It feels janky and incomplete. Granted, you have 8 characters, all with special moves, and you have 3 boss characters to fight. But when it's as janky and poorly thought out as this, it really isn't fun to play. As I understand it, this was Unico's very first game, and maybe you could be a bit more forgiving bearing that in mind, but it was released commercially, so no, I'm not going to be more considerate bearing that in mind. This game is pretty awful. Well, maybe that's a bit harsh, but it isn't good, and as it is so derivative, to the point I think it actually rips stuff off very blatantly, plays badly, this is getting ranked low. So placing it on my overall ranking list, I would put it above Arabian but below Street Sports Basketball. Anyway, that's it for this video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.